Welcome back. Now I'm delighted to be joined by Sir Iain Duncan Smith, former leader of the Conservative Party. I want to start by asking, how are you? And I mean that sort of sincerely, because just explain what happened to you where you were hit on the head with a traffic cone.
Well, interestingly, there were a bunch of what I would loosely describe as morons outside the hall, banging drums and screaming obscenities, you know, just about every obscenity you could imagine. And we were on our way, my wife and a friend of hers, so two women, on our way to, I was speaking at another engagement outside the secure zone, and they followed us banging drums and hurling abuse at us. And I was quite concerned about the two women with me, you know, given all that's happened and everything else. And 3/4 of the way there, I stopped for a second to cross the road, and some bloke had picked up a great big heavy traffic cone, one of the ones that are there, and tried to smash it into my head. And sort of knocked me forward, and I held onto it, turned, lost my temper because, you know, I stepped forward and I pointed at them like this, and then they all backed away, and then I dropped the cone. I said, "You're just pathetic," I said, and walked off into the thing. And then the police apparently arrested them and doing them for assault. But, you know, it was, when you think about all that's been going on, and particularly I had two women with me, for goodness sake, and the language and the abusive nature of it, there's no place in politics.
We can take a look, actually.
I don't remember which one it was, actually, but it was one of them crossing the road.
And how long was that going on?
Well, it was 10 minutes,
10 minutes
because I was walking down for 10 minutes, and I was in a hurry because I was running late for that particular engagement, and that was the moment when, obviously out of anger because I wouldn't engage with them, he smashed it on my head. It was quite heavy, actually, but I'm not too bothered about that. But the reality was, I didn't know what was happening to the other two women, so I thought...
They're all right, you're all okay?
We're all fine, we're fine. You know, I've been around a bit and I was in the army. Nothing will dent my confidence on these things, but I did think to myself, this has no place in politics. And no place anywhere, really. Absolutely. I mean, you know, by all means, if you want to protest, but you've no right to intimidate people.
And I think everybody would share.
No, lots of my Labour friends said the same thing. So
you've heard from some Labour colleagues. I'm pleased to say that, because I think everybody would stand with you and say that that is not acceptable. Now, tomorrow is a big day, and not just because it's Boris Johnson's speech. Actually, it's a big day for those people who are losing the £20 universal credit uplift. That ends tomorrow. You've been campaigning to keep it. Why?
Well, first of all, universal credit we designed so that it could support those who are most worst off and help people back into work, all in one seamless process. And when I did it, at the time I resigned from the government, they'd taken 4 or 5 billion out of it. So it was always meant to have more money invested in it, and it works better. What we've seen during the lockdown is it's the silent ship in the fleet. It's absorbed huge numbers of people, way more than was ever expected, who'd fallen unemployed as a result of the COVID shock. And it's done it quietly and calmly, and they've got on, and it's really helped protect them, the most vulnerable. So my argument is, look, first of all, I think this is an investment in a system that works. If you invest in that system, actually the overall will fall as more people go back to work. But more importantly with that, this is really aimed at those who are facing difficulty. And as we go into the winter, my main concern, even if you want to get rid of, I said to the government, this is not the time to do it. Let's see where we are in 4 or 5 months, and then we can debate it properly. But rush to it now with winter coming and all the costs of living rising, all the fuel issues, all of this is going to affect the poorest in society most. So I want to hold on to it to keep them stable as we go through, more of them get into work, all the rest of it. Let's just pause whatever else we do and not do it. So I'm not finished with it yet. We're simply going to carry on campaigning, and there may be chances on legislations coming back to even force a vote on it.
Because they don't appear to be listening at all, despite your loud protests and your loud calls for this cut. not to be removed now, for
Yes.
it to even, certainly in the run-up to winter, you would like to make it more permanent. But even when you say, well, let's just get it through the winter, they just don't appear to hear that argument.
Well, they've twitched because they put 500 million into the councils. Now, why they didn't put it into universal credit, I don't know, because that knows what every household income is. That's the brilliance of it. So it would have been better. And so what I've just taken there is a sense that maybe we have a bit of a problem coming down the road. So what I'm arguing is, go on, you can go further. You know, let's just go further and let's accept that as circumstances change, we change our position, and that's how we should do it. I've got a huge amount of respect for Rishi and everybody else, but the Treasury orthodoxy is haul it back now, and my answer is sometimes you as politicians have got to say to the Treasury, back off. I instinctively know what the public need, and they don't need this right now.
The speculation that Boris Johnson could use his conference speech to increase the minimum wage. Are you hearing any of those rumours? I read it. You'll read the papers like all of us do. That's where I got that from. But is it doing the rounds amongst Tory MPs, that rumour?
I think it's running around. But like all things in conference, you learn to wait and see whether they actually announce anything at all. You know, you need a story to go on the front page tomorrow, so you brief something out. Nothing ever happens about it, and it dies. So we'll see on Wednesday if he talks about it. That's fine. Improving the minimum wage, okay, but the important thing is we don't forget those for whom the minimum wage is not there yet because they're out of work and they're still struggling after COVID, real problems with mental health issues. I just want us to remember we have an obligation as well to them. It's what the Tories do, it's what they should do, and that's why the bit about universal credit is important. Just keep that stable for the moment at least.
I want to ask you about whether there has been any progress, because you were one of the MPs, the Conservative MPs, who was sanctioned by China. What happened since that was announced?
Well, first of all, I was sanctioned for speaking out against what I call Uyghur genocide at the moment, the abuse that's taking place of Christians, Tibetans. You know, it's really very nasty in China, and the trashing of the Sino-British agreement. Now, we've got peaceful protesters being arrested now, incarcerated for life in China, which is all wrong. So that objection has led to them, in theory, sanctioning myself and other colleagues, and also colleagues in what I set up, the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, with 21 countries. Colleagues in Europe, politicians, are now being sanctioned as well because they're part of this organisation. But we're not going to stop. I understand there may be the chance that they've issued red notices, which means arrest on sight and extradition. So we'll still manage all that. My view is I've never given in to a bully yet. I'm not going to give in to this bully. And Britain should stand for freedom for all those who have not got freedom. It is our job to stand up for them.
Very clear and passionate, and we thank you for joining us on GB News.
My pleasure.
And we all send our best wishes and relief that you're okay.
Thank you.